Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first of 4 webinars this year from WESTMARC. We are embarking on webinar 1, the West Valley Workforce Success Series. Today is Find Them, Keep Them, Recruiting and Retention Tips. I think everybody's interested in how to attract and retain talent here in the West Valley. My name is Julie LaCroix. I'm honored to be your moderator throughout this series, and my background is in career psychology. I've had a private practice doing career counseling for almost 20 years. I serve adults of all ages and stages as they navigate different areas of the labor market. I'd like to thank our sponsors today for helping us present this webinar. City of Surprise, thank you very much, and the Greater Maricopa Foreign Trade Zone, also known as the GMFTZ. Thank you, sponsors. This is a real treat for me to hear from these hiring teams and dig deep into what's working and what we might need to be focusing on to continuously strengthen our employment brand here in the West Valley. I'm pleased to introduce our panelists today. To my right, we have Kathy Brown, the CFO of Paloma Ready Mix. In the center, we have Patrick Fitzhugh, Director of Regional Site Management for USAA, and Rachel Williams, Director of Human Resources for Sika Plastic Packaging. So let's see if we can extract some best practices for our listeners today and allow these panelists to serve as models for other companies who might be listening today, looking for some tips and tricks. All right, let's get started. So I'm going to ask each of you, Rachel, why don't we start with you? Let's go around and give a little introduction. Tell us kind of about your company, why the West Valley, the impact you're making, a little about your role.
So my name is Rachel Williams. I am the Director of HR for Sika Plastic Packaging, which is new to the West Valley. We moved here in 2019 out of California. We are the newest subsidiary of Seattle Tacoma Box Company, headquartered in Kent, Washington, and that company was founded in 1889. 135 years old in April. Still run by the same family. We're in the 6th generation of leadership of the same family that originally started the company. So
what a legacy.
Yeah, definitely.
How nice to have you here. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, that might be a record. We'll have to look into that. Thank you for joining us today. Patrick, tell us about yourself.
Well, I work for USAA, and if you watch football, you've probably seen a commercial of ours. But USAA is a financial services and insurance organization. We serve the military and their families. We are not part of the government. We're actually a member-owned company. We were started by a group of Army officers in 1922 when no one else would insure them. So we've got a really incredible mission of taking care of our military families and making sure that they have the financial security they need to be successful in life. I came into USAA just over 12 years ago as an entry level, answering insurance on the calls.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and now I have the honor of representing USAA within the Phoenix marketplace. As the regional site director, I do a lot of community development, community relations, but also focus a lot on our employee experience for our 4,000 employees here, which a lot of them reside in the West Valley.
I'll bet they do. And I'm hoping to hear a little bit more about that internal promotion strategy that you have, because I'm sure that's alive and well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what a great story. Another good legacy. All right, Kathy, tell us about your company and your role.
Well, I work for Paloma Ready Mix. My husband and I own Paloma Ready Mix, and I am the CFO there. We provide concrete ready mix and materials to both the West Valley, but we have always focused on farming. We're from a large farming family in the West Valley. So we focus on working with farms, tribes, and in-rural communities. And we've done that since 2009.
Very interesting. Another family-owned company. So let's start then with you, Kathy, and then I'll just kind of open up some of these questions to everybody, because I think everybody wants to know, when it comes to talent attraction, our first topic today, what attracts people to your company? Why do they choose you? They could choose a lot of places to work. What is it about your organization that people find attractive?
So I think what people find attractive in the blue collar industry and of trucking, because we do a lot of material trucking, so we need CDL drivers, is we get a lot of people who are over the road drivers. And so over the road drivers, once you start having a family, you want to be close to your family. And so for us, they have a lot of great technical tools that they can bring in. We have a lot of young people that have young families that want to live and be in the West Valley. And the West Valley is growing, so there's tons of opportunity there for them. So I think one of our selling points is that you can be home with your family every night.
Sounds like you have a wonderful labor pool actually probably anybody in the country with a CDL license who wants to get out of a snow state and have a more regionally based life and not have to do a career change could come and knock on your door and probably get an interview.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. What an interesting opportunity to have such a huge labor pool. My goodness. What have you guys found? What about you guys? Is there what attracts people to your different companies? Why do people choose you over the other employers?
So we actually operate quite a bit on referrals, employee referrals. And so being a family-owned company and the family has done such a wonderful job in establishing relationships with employees. We just kind of tend to be a family-owned company with many tentacles, right? And so we have the ownership, which owns the company, and then we have families of people that are working within the company. And so we actually attract a lot of candidates through employee referral.
Do you then, when you're on a hiring spree, do you then send out those internal job postings and say, hey, do you have a referral? Do you broadcast that to your internal workforce?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know that we'll get into it just a little bit later too, but we also have a referral program. So
oh, wow. Okay.
Ways for the referral they bring in. We do outside job postings as well,
Right.
which we do get candidates. Not always as successful because we're a smaller company and don't have a lot of brand recognition just yet, but we're working.
Yeah, and I know I read a lot of research over the years about referral networking for building an employee a workforce, and it's usually a very, very high quality set of candidates who
There's
come
a
in.
tremendous amount of accountability.
Yes.
Along with employee referrals.
Right, and loyalty that comes with
Yes.
that as well. Wonderful, and probably adds to the friendships that already exist.
Yes.
Nice. How about at USAA? Pick USAA.
Well, similarly, we do get a lot of referrals, success from that. Excited to talk about that program, but I think the first one is just the mission that you have. A lot of people come to USAA are seeking a purpose-driven goal, a job where they show up, they feel like they matter and they're making an impact in the lives of others. So, when we're talking about our jobs and our postings, we want to make sure we're doing a really good job of telling the story of the organization, of our culture, and of our members, the people who we're going to be supporting and working for every day. And I think if you can connect people to that work and the impact it has, that's a really big draw for USAA. So we get a lot of people who want to show up to make a difference. They're not looking to just put in the minimum 40 hours. They're going to put in as much work as it needs to get the job done.
Right, gotcha. And USAA is a national brand. It's very recognizable, whereas some of the smaller players may not have that national recognition. And I always love to tell my clients that it's important to look at smaller, more regional employers who are making a big impact, because there can be amazing benefits. There can be an amazing culture. You get a chance to talk to the owner operator.
Sure.
You get more of sometimes a sense of being in the business instead of just working for the business peripherally.
Sure.
So I'm sure that brand gets you some hiring, some talent attraction momentum.
Yeah, there is that balance of how do we create a sense of family and belonging.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that later.
Sure.
A sense of inclusion, especially within a large corporate giant.
Yeah.
So, there's pros and cons. I think there's a lot of things about small family-owned businesses that I envy and I wish versus the large corporation. So, it's just, you have to realize the target audience of who you're trying to attract and what it is that they're interested in, because all employees are not created equal, and we don't want to bring someone in who's not going to be a right fit.
Correct.
So the best thing we can do is make sure that everyone has a very clear understanding of the culture of working for a large corporate environment and what it is not.
Right.
And we do the exact same for as bringing someone in to work in a family-owned business.
Right.
I tell them that the greatest asset is also the greatest challenge, right? And that is accessibility. You're accessible to the owner. You're accessible to me. There's a level of accessibility to an employee when you're in a small family-owned business where it is direct and you don't have to go through any layers to get there. That's good and that's bad. And that doesn't work for everybody.
Right. It's almost like people who grow up in a small family might do better in a smaller business, and people who grow up in a big family and go to a big college might do better in a big business. So
it's all what you're used to and what your comfort level is, right? Because obviously the employee needs to be just as happy with being hired as the company has to be with having hired them.
And do you have interview tactics or just strategies within the interview process where you kind of try to filter out who might or might not be a good culture fit. There's certain questions. I'm not asking what they are, but
Well, my communication style is pretty blunt.
yeah.
And so in the interview process, one of the questions that we ask of candidates is, do you have experience working with a family-owned business, and what was that experience like? Did you care for it? Did you not care for it? Was good, was bad? And you let them talk through that, and it's interesting to watch when you let candidates talk through a question in that manner. They will they'll either talk themselves into something or out of something, right? And you allow them to do that because they have to realize whether or not that experience is going to be good for them.
Right.
And so we just ask it straight out. Yeah, because it's not for everyone. It's not. Some people like to, when they want to work with a company, there's a thought process that goes behind that. They believe that there's promotional opportunity.
Or more stability.
And granted, based on volume, there is, right? But not always.
Not
So, and it, not to the detriment of us. It doesn't mean that there's not. It just means that they might take a little longer and there might be less opportunity, but the opportunity is still there.
I also think working in a big company, the systems are in place, right? So in smaller companies, well, I'm assuming with USA, or you would have a lot of systems that were very structured based on the military personnel that they're serving, right? And in small companies, you don't have that. You're very close to the boss, and sometimes there's not a policy that's going to tell you exactly what to do all the time. And so I think you might have to have a little more flexibility. Sure. And be comfortable with that, working in small companies.
Mhm.
Whereas in a very large company, that's a corporation, they're gonna have rules to keep you in your lane all the time. And so it just depends on what you feel comfortable with. If you're OCD, you may like those rules. If you're an artist, you may like a different type of, women. So I think there's something out there for everybody, right? So you just have to, as the HR director or, CEO of the HR department, you have to be able to get to that.
Well, it's interesting because here in the West Valley, most of the larger employers are considerably smaller companies in the grand scheme of things.
Sure.
So I would think that in the West Valley, you might get a greater pool of candidates who are used to a smaller company culture.
Mhm.
So that might be another conversation. How has your experience been in the past? Kind of like, what you were talking about. Hiring for different layers within an organization. Let's talk about those strategies, because how you're going to attract an executive is going to be very different than how you're going to attract, entry level, staff level, managerial level. Can you speak to how you attract, how you go out and market yourself to those different layers of employment?
Go ahead.
HR professional.
Anyone looking for a job? Let's go.
Interestingly enough, our location here in Arizona is a manufacturing plant, and the corporate office is out of Kent, Washington.
Okay.
And so we have some admin that does work out of the Arizona location. But the challenge, I think, what I'll pull from that question and answer is the challenge that we face is the different layers of skill set, right, within our organization that we're hiring for right now. And so that's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing here is the production of skill set. And with all of the businesses that are moving into the West Valley, we're now competing, right? We're all in the boxing ring and we're all fighting for the same people, especially when you get to, extrusion operators for our business, or box manufacturer. And so, in maintenance, we kind of tend to fight around for maintenance folks as well. And so, I think the methodology for our recruiting doesn't change very much, but we have done a phenomenal job with pay scale, and that has benefited us greatly.
Good.
Well, USA's been present in Phoenix for over 20 years now, and there's still times where I'll go out to the community and people don't know who USA is. So don't assume just because we're this large national brand that everybody still knows who we are. So, the approach definitely is based on the level of skills you need. So for our member contact, basic servicing on insurance, we need someone with a high school diploma, a year of customer service, and their P&C license. That's really it. That's basic. So we're hiring a 19-year-old or 20-year-old, we can absolutely build the skills within them as long as they're a culture fit. And then our screening process through the application, phone interview, then a Zoom interview, we do evaluate what I call our kindergarten skills. Can you share? Can you collaborate? Can you,
It's why I work for myself.
Right. Can you?
You and I'll strategize on a better
Thank
word
you.
for that later.
Can you navigate, healthy conflict?
Sure.
Those types.
Collaboration.
That's right. But only half of my staff here in Phoenix is that member contact. The other half is, my chief legal office, my IT teams who are developing our apps and our enterprise risk.
It's a high level job.
Yeah, risk and compliance.
Yeah.
Some of the top decisions for our bank are being made here out of Phoenix, right? So we do have different models. I'd say not one model is the same. And then it's also going to be by our line of business, because we have those subcultures within USAA. Our accounting team, they probably have a different team environment than my, the sporting sponsorships team. Right? They're different. So at the highest level, when it comes to the executives, that's where we definitely have to go into more proactive tactics. Usually with the lower level, we get plenty of applications. We are struggling in the PNC space because of that licensing right now, but
You're not the only insurance company who.
No, we're not. And there's some great workforce opportunities here, I think, locally. We're going to be discussing some opportunities with some community colleges as well. And my point with this long story is the recruiting really starts earlier than anyone thinks. And that's, for financial services, when I was a little kid in school, I was not growing up thinking I want to work in insurance or financial services. So, as new industry comes into the city, how do we get in front of families in underserved, underrepresented communities where we have rich talent and make them see this future career in financial services or in manufacturing or in construction outside of the scope of what they've been looking at. So we're working with youth organizations to try and start that as well as getting into the high schools and within all the workforce development programs that are available.
And on that note, I am going to plug the September 20th upcoming webinar. It's going to be called The Foundation, Building a Foundation, K through 12 Education for Labor Pipelines. So you might want to tune in to the September 20th webinar for that one. Thank you, Patrick. That was actually really interesting. Do you have multiple layers or are you kind of single layer?
So we do, we have multiple layers only because there is a great shortage in labor coming into kind of the equipment. Do you know how to run a grader? Do you know how to run backhoe? Do you know how to run a mixer? So those really large pieces of equipment that you need in construction. So we train from, and I think many other employers are finding that they can create their own programs to do internal training. And we've done that as we create our own program to get the staff that we need in those areas. We've also done a lot, and I would encourage other employers to sit on other boards. I'm on the Maricopa County Colleges Foundation board, and we worked through them to have a construction institute at South Mountain Community College, right? And so they're doing some of the training for us in that because there's such a gap in that area, or it's just the pipeline gets real thin and trying to get people through there is really hard. So how do we make that pipe bigger so that more people can get through there quicker and have the skills to be able to start on a job? And it's really kind of an interesting thing. We pushed the 4-year colleges for a long time in the United States, and that has left blue collar manufacturing gaps. And we see few coming from the farming sector as well. We see fewer and fewer farms, right? And so farms are needed to grow our food, and we even need boxes to package those foods up from the field, and it can be very difficult to have those skill sets going into that job when we're not raising children on farms anymore, and there's fewer people out there getting those skill sets. So we need to figure out how to increase that pipeline. So we're doing some of that work with the community colleges where we don't think they need 4-year degrees and they don't need to get in debt. And so some of it is just internally, we need the people now. So we're internally training. But we're also working on some partnerships. I love Patrick's, piece on, partnering with others to figure out how to fill the gap.
And I can tell you as a career counselor, 10 out of 10 of my clients want to know if we go into that career or that job, will there be training?
Yeah.
And so the more, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about professional development tactics specifically, but the more you can advertise that and market that, I think the better. And there are so many young men and women who like hands-on work. They're still there. You're never going to be able to take that out of the workforce. Everyone thinks it's all technology now, but I can assure you it's not. They're out there. It's just how do you find them? Because they're decentralized often, you know, and they have to kind of find those training programs or find those employers.
Well,
You know,
they're being pushed in a direction as well.
they're being pushed into a,
Being told that they should go to a four-year college and get a degree. And
Right.
that may not necessarily. be
Right.
what they should
and they're
be.
designing furniture on the side.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or they're doing, you know, hot rod restoration on the
Right.
side. And that's who you want, you know,
Yeah.
that's your next leader in your organization.
Have to undo the stigma. Coming to
Yes.
manufacturing or construction.
Yes.
Definitely been a stigma attached, and I won't be tangenting now, but
Yes.
there's definitely.
It is a stigma.
There's definitely a stigma
Yeah.
that's attached to it that we need to do away with because
And,
it's
yeah.
doing harm to people who are in industry.
Yes.
They're struggling to find the people that we need. And it's also keeping people from doing jobs that may very well make them happy.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll say one thing before we move on. I call that bad advice from well-meaning parents and friends.
Absolutely.
That's what I call that.
Absolutely. Well intended.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about targeting different layers, a little bit about entry level. Do any of you hire entry level candidates? You do? How do you target the entry level, and what's the entry level person to do when they see 2 years and they don't have 2 years of experience? What is that? How do you make that match?
We have done what I would like to call a phenomenal job at Sika Plastic Packaging in developing what we call passports for positions. And so I'll take our extrusion department, for example. Extrusion takes little resin beads, makes it into a sheet, we can make it into a box. And so it's where the process starts. The extrusion department, in cooperation with HR, developed a passport, which is literally a step-by-step of what you need to get from entry level to assistant 1, assistant 2.
Oh, wow.
All the way on up to senior operator. It's a book.
They love that.
Paper book.
Yeah.
And as you go through this process, the leads will sign off on that. Leads or the trainer, whoever it is, can sign off on that. There's certain people who have signing authority for those. And then when you get to the step, it doesn't matter. It's up to you. It's however long it takes. When you get to the end of that step, you're promoted. It comes with a wage increase. It comes with a promotion, but it's quantifiable, right? Because I think so many times we just dump employees off into onto our production floor and we say, go get them, kid. And what does that mean? Where do I go? Where am I getting them? And what am I doing? And so what we have tried to do is back that process up and give everyone a pass. It's defined from start to finish.
I love that. It keeps everybody focused on their own career mobility. And in the field of career psychology, we study how an individual matriculates through a career trajectory. And those who like to work with their hands, who enjoy sensory work, cops, firefighters, machinists, manufacturing, mechanical engineers, any of the tools of any trade, the value system is structured progression. They like rank and file.
Yes.
And that's their value system. So you're brilliant to put that type of intervention in your type of manufacturing workforce. That's
There's a little
perfect
bit of self-serving from an HR standpoint, right?
measurement.
Well, right. But then there's the haves and the have-nots, right?
Yeah.
So why did that person get promoted? How come I'm not being promoted to this?
Yeah.
Why is this person's wage different? Because now everybody talks about it, right? And so this took that off the table as well. The passport took that off the table as well. Well, because
Great.
it's quantifiable.
And then an entry level person can feel comfortable coming in.
Absolutely. They know exactly the path that they need to take to get to the next step.
Great. Any other comments on entry level work, or should we?
Yeah, I think for us, absolutely, we want to be known as a skill development company. Company's going to develop its employees. We can get to some of the benefits later on, but some of the benefits we've rolled out, some of the programs we've rolled out is just to support that brand. So everyone sees we're putting action behind our words and that we're going to develop employees like myself who've found a way to navigate, through a very complex environment. There's a reason a lot of companies don't do banking and insurance together because it's just insanely complex. But although it's not as easily progressive, step by step, skill by skill, we also understand that the skills our employees are going to need in the future, we haven't even identified some of them yet, right? Especially with artificial intelligence
Right.
coming.
Like data science 5 years ago.
Right. So, when we show up, first off, from a recruiting perspective, we are showing up to places like the Grace Hopper Institute. They do an annual event for women in engineering
Oh,
and
nice.
IT, right? So, go to where your employees, your demographic is going to be, where you want to hire from. But then show them the work that you have done with your own employee base. Have those advocates out there who can share the story. It goes back to the storytelling of making sure people can see themselves as that person and see that they have that capability to progress.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Kathy, do you want to say anything about?
No,
that?
I love the stories and I'm like taking pieces of it
Yeah.
to like, I should do that in my job. We do.
I think everybody is.
Yeah, I love the story piece. The story is really important. And we have some entry level positions that then work into crushing. We own a mine. And so that's a different company that we own. And so we have some of our employees go and talk to the high schools about, hey, this is where I started. I had just a shovel and I was just doing shovel work. And then I moved into, I got trained on this piece of equipment. And so we do have some entry level positions, but also trying to tell the story about how you do it to other young people when it feels very intimidating, right? And so there's not always, I love this passport idea, which I'm taking and stealing. But it's so great, like you got to tell the story so that others believe in themselves. Because part of it, when you're 18 years old, you just don't believe that you can work on that big piece of huge rock crushing machine. And actually you can. And so we have our employees go out and do it. And it helps them with their own interesting self-belief in themselves. Our employees become leaders in our community and
And brand ambassadors.
Yes. And so we want all of those things to encompass our employees, but also our reputation.
Yeah, you definitely want your employees feeling proud of where they work and proud of how they're treated. And if they can articulate that to a prospective workforce for you, that's a nod to your success.
Yes.
Congratulations on that one. Did you want to say something else about that, Rachel? Awesome. All right. I always feel so sorry for the entry level kids who are afraid they're never going to ever find a job. And the actual, the truth is you have 3 employers here, moms and dads who are trying to get your college grads a job. Here are 3 employers who are ready to open that door and have a conversation with your kids. And again, I think this speaks to some of the strategic partnerships. I'd like to dive into that a little bit more because I heard you say community colleges. I heard you say high schools. And I also heard you say, Patrick, something about partnering with professional organizations, which is my favorite trick. I think that's a great place to go look for talent. And I think it takes a lot of time on an employer's part. So if you have the bandwidth to do it, I think it's a very successful strategy. It's just sometimes hard to deploy that many people out there to all those professional organizations. But can you guys give us some examples of strategic partners that you have maybe right here in the West Valley, ones that you would like to form, that you have formed, whether that's with a university or a high school recruiting and staffing agency, even maybe just a disciple, somebody who just really likes what you guys do and talks about you a lot, because they're very social people and keep bringing those referrals in 3 or 4 times a month. Sometimes you get people like that who advocate for you heartlessly, selflessly. What has worked well in these partnerships and what might we be missing here for our listeners who might be a possible strategic partner for any of your companies?
No one wants to talk first.
You talk first, so I will always give a pause.
Yeah, this is a complex conversation, I think, because, in the grand scheme of things, there's a lot of work to still be done in workforce development in Arizona. We have so many parties that are already here, but day by day, new workforce partners are trying to come in and solve a lot of these problems that we're having. So, the first one I'd say is don't get overwhelmed by the amount of workforce partners that are there. Step into one and try and see if it works. If not, there's other organizations that you can with.
So it doesn't have to be perfect.
Doesn't have to be
Just
perfect.
get one on the books.
That's right. And in the past, we'd had a partnership with Year Up, which is really focused on youth, high school kids and getting them transitioned into the careers.
Is that a nonprofit?
It's a nonprofit.
Is that a West Valley nonprofit? Phoenix?
That's a Phoenix, Valley-wide. I'd say for West Valley specifically, where we have opportunity still is just to get better involved with the community colleges, because a lot of them are now breaking away from the standard idea of the 4-year degree, to your point, because we have just pushed that so hard. So
Sure.
I'm very happy to see programs like, GCU just did a electrical engineering certification for students.
Yeah.
Like, how awesome.
Choose specialties.
Yeah, and now those people can go start working
Right.
and they can use their education benefits immediately. So I think colleges, community colleges, universities are more open, and they're doing things that they never would have done 2 or 3 years ago. So that's exciting to see. And then just so between the nonprofits, WESTMARC is really just another great example, honestly,
Yeah.
because these conversations are so invaluable. That's the power of this community stuff. Is I've heard stuff today that I'm going to go and take back to my Fortune 100 company from a family-owned business. Like, that's powerful. So
Send them an invoice, Rachel.
yeah, thank you.
En route.
Okay. So I definitely believe in organizations like WESTMARC and the West Valley because of the cost of living, accessibility to talent. There's so many reasons that we as USAA continue to be involved in the West.
Yeah, and I would just like to add on to that and just plug that I find the West Valley, and I know everybody here who's tried to stick a toe in the strategic partnership water. It's a very warm, welcoming water. It's very, very easy to be quickly connected here. It's a very congenial group. People want the whole West Valley to succeed. I haven't really found anybody who's working for themselves and their own brand. It's always seems like, a rising tide lifts all boats. And that's really kind of the theme and of the culture in my experience. So for any of our viewers or listeners who haven't had a chance to reach out to WESTMARC or a company and say, hey, we do this, could we maybe, have lunch? Do it, because chances are probably going to be, if they can't partner with you, they might know somebody who can, and that referral will come in.
So our strategic partnership that we have recently formed is with the Buckeye campus of WESTMAC.
Great.
And I know,
Yeah.
we can't believe we found them, but
Yeah, I was gonna say.
yeah, they've done a tremendous job in the development program of that campus. Is that they specifically are teaching extrusion and maintenance, PLC maintenance, and that sort of thing. And it's the two holes that I seem to have the hardest time filling in our organization. And so in agreement with them, partnership, we're going to give them some of our old equipment, and they're going to funnel some people our way. It's a scratch, it's a scratching arrangement, right? And so we're turning over old equipment to them so that they can work on it. Which benefits the entire organization. And then I have recently agreed with them. I asked them if I can pull 4 of their graduates. I have 2 PLC maintenance positions open right now, and I have 2 positions open in extrusion. And I said, I'm turning these over to you first. I would love 4 of your graduates. Here's the pay. We'll come on campus to do the interviews, whatever it is that we can do to make this more convenient for them. These young folks have gone through this program for at least 2 years now. They obviously are on a track to not necessarily go to a 4-year college. And so if we can employ them immediately out of high school, it's win-win all over the place. They've got a skill set that I wouldn't normally pull off of Indeed or Monster or somewhere else.
Right.
And they'd come into an organization and they'd be much appreciated. And so that partnership we're hoping is going to be very.
That is a
very
win-win. I mean, that makes you both look good.
Absolutely.
Great metrics on both sides. It's just elegantly tied together. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I love how business, Rachel's right, is business really needs to drive into those community colleges relationships, the WESTMACs and the high schools, right? The high school career and technical education. I was going to mention WESTMAC, great water hydrology program, great electricians program. Getting a walkthrough there is phenomenal. You walk through, I walk through as business leaders. I think that we need to be in there and we need to tell them what we need, right? So businesses, as the recommendation to your audience, is like, hey, why don't we get more walkthroughs of these high schools, junior colleges, and WESTMAC. WESTMAC also does adult retraining, right? And so that's really important for a changing world like that we live in. You might have done one thing, but in your 50s, you might need to change and get some new skills. And so it's cheaper than going back to college. And it's available. It's available in the West Valley. It's available in the Northwest Valley. They have a mechanics program in the Northwest Valley, along with some of their other stuff. So we obviously partner with them as well. And I'm going to hit on our, in the West Valley specifically, Buckeye Unified High School, led by Mike News. He's a CTE director, has a fabulous career and technical education program. One of the most robust that I've ever seen, and I've walked through with Arizona Builders Alliance, which I'm on their in their organization as well. I've walked through Phoenix Unions, and Buckeyes by far beats everybody. They have lots of programming, lots of different categories that kids they might try car mechanics, and they don't like that, they can try something else. And I think that's the piece of our building our young people is like, you need to try this. And if you hate it, thank God you didn't spend 4 years on it in college.
Yeah.
Because now you can do something else.
Right.
And I love that about the high schools in Buckeye. They have a really robust CT program. We actually just called yesterday. I called their coordinator there. And I said, hey, I have a job for somebody to do maintenance. It's for heavy mechanics, but they have a maintenance or a mechanic program there, a car mechanic. And we just need somebody who's entry level and that's willing to do that over the summer. We just went on an apprentice, and they said, we have somebody, get us the resume or the job description, and we're gonna put you guys together.
Great.
And it might not work, but at least I have somebody that I can go to. And I think businesses just need to be able to get out from behind their desk, and get out in the field,
Right.
and really push education forward in that way. Because otherwise they don't know, they just keep teaching what they've always taught, which is good. We need core stuff, but we also need that specialty skill too. So
Well, applicants are coming to us the way that they used to either, right? And so in order, and it's wonderful in the West Valley here, and I'm not from here, right? I'm from Washington, but it's a different experience that I have versus schooling there and schooling here, certainly. And so the wonderful thing about it here is so far that I've identified with WESTMARC, and certainly going to ask you about the other ones you guys are using, is that you tap a vein that has foundational knowledge already and aptitude. And so we can do the rest, right? Once we get you in the building, if we know that you have this baseline set of skills and that you have the inclination, you can stay with our company for the next 40 years if you'd like. We'll retire you out of there. I'll throw you a party. So I think that that's one of the great things that I really like about the programs that we're.
Wonderful. And, just a shout out about the community college representatives and the WESTMARC representatives. There's somebody at every single WESTMARC event. So for anyone in the audience who doesn't attend the WESTMARC events, attend the WESTMARC events. There's always somebody from GCU, University of Phoenix, WESTMAC, Estrella Mountain. There's always a decision maker and somebody who can route you to the right person. And so they're very involved in the WESTMARC community. So use this community as your centralizing force to find the little tentacles that you need to follow to get to your prospective workers. So we're going to skip it forward here just a little bit. Let's go into talent retention. So obviously it sounds like it's summarizing talent attraction. It's a little bit of a puzzle. It's a little unique. It takes a lot of creative thinking, takes getting out from behind the desk. That was a huge takeaway for me. Among others, takes strategic partnerships. It takes thinking about how our workers need to be trained and need to be seen in our organization. Rewards, if you will, benefits. What about keeping them? Let's talk about how you keep them. What are some low cost, like totally innovative things that obviously if you do that somebody in the audience might be able to say, oh, we could do something. What do you have that might be unique?
We are continually I'm planning something. I'm always in the planning stages of something. We do things as I guess small or insignificant. I don't really want to refer to them that way, but our general manager just barbecued. We run 12-hour shifts. And so we had a 12:30 barbecue and a 6:30 barbecue. And we try to, strategize that so that we hit as many people as possible. And so our general manager and our plant superintendent were out there barbecuing, and it wasn't quite hot yet, but they were out there and, serving everyone and having conversation. And so little things like that. We order a snow cone truck that comes every year, and snow cones, right smack in the middle of your excruciatingly hot summers here.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of other programs too. We've bolstered our benefits package immensely over the last few years. And so when I think of compensation, obviously as an HR professional, I think of it's not just the dollars I mean.
Not at all.
It's your entire
Qualitative.
rewards, as we refer to it, right? Your entire compensation package. And so we've added pet insurance. We've added.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, our CEO just shook his head at me and said, "Go, Rachel, go." Do
That's
what
brilliant.
you do."
That's what I haven't heard.
It's not gonna come work.
And then, and we also have wonderful incentive programs so that people in the plant can hit production bonuses based on the
Great.
department that they work in. We also have an attendance incentive program. And so we actually reward people for coming to work on time and not leaving early.
Great.
And so it's an extra 8 hours a quarter. If you earn all 4 quarters throughout the year, meeting all the criteria, we give you a 5th day. So it amounts to an additional 40.
That's a wonderful perk.
Well, it gets better because you can turn it in for money, or you can
Oh.
cash it out for your hourly wage, or you can take it as time. And so just little things that are important. What is important to people, right? Can we turn this money over in a wage across, and annualize it, or do we want to give someone the opportunity to earn 40 extra hours of pay a year? And so you have to sit down and what works within your company and what can you sustain and what matters to people, because they'll see right through you if you're giving them something that is not important to them, right? Money and time are always incredibly important to us. And so we do have that program.
And barbecue.
Yeah. And barbecue
Barbecue
and snow cones. And we also, we have PTO donation program. If
Oh,
someone's out on approved medical leave, you can donate PTO.
That's beautiful.
And if something goes out from HR, of course, never any names, but, and you can turn it in at the lower of the 2 wages, the
Right.
donor or the donee. And then we also have tuition reimbursement. And so any employee that's been with us for at least 1 year is eligible for up to $2,500 annually of tuition reimbursement from the company, provided that whatever it is that they're doing is going to either, increase them in their current position or prepare them for another position within the company.
Gotcha. So a very, very nice, robust and creative mix of tangibles and intangibles.
Absolutely.
I'm impressed. That's pretty good. How about you two? What other kind of tangibles and intangibles do you
Well,
put out there?
the crux is you asked what's low cost.
Yeah.
And
Some are not.
yeah, some are definitely not.
Barbecue.
Yeah, very
Barbecue.
big barbecue for us. We have a PTO buy and sell program,
Okay.
so employees can
Make a market in it.
decide at the beginning of the year if they want to purchase an additional up to 40 hours of PTO. Or if they get to the point like me, because I've worked at USA for 12 years and I just never burned through my leave, can sell it each year. So that's kind of good for people because some people work at our company for the benefits.
Sure.
They're not worried about the pay.
Right.
So they will take as much time as they possibly can. A couple other benefits that we have that are really unique, and I'm not going to get into the cost side of it, but we have an on-site clinic. Through Premise Health is the organization that we use because we want to minimize the time away from work and for the stress of employees having to leave at lunch to go to a doctor's appointment. They can do all their primary care there.
Wow.
They do blood draws, and it's all like your standard $45 copay.
Right.
But a big component of that is we have on-site therapists. So through our employee EAP program,
Yep. Mental health.
you can basically make a reservation and go down and talk to somebody as you need, right? So we're finding that is getting a lot of use. That's one of our newer benefits. We'll talk about some of the development stuff, I think, in a few minutes. Other things, we have some reimbursement for, adoption expenses. Our maternity program has extended its time. So, mothers are basically getting up to 4 months. And we now have a paternity program.
Wow.
So fathers have 12 weeks of bonding time as well. So
European of you.
yeah, thank you very much. Very progressive, right? And also some of the discretionary bonuses and incentives, based on performance. But the approach I kind of take is the benefits that brought somebody in are typically not going to be the same benefits that always retain them.
Right.
Things change. So we do some of the tuition assistance and reimbursement programs as well that are kind of the standard practice. One that we'll talk a little bit more, I think, in a few minutes is talent development. So here's one for you that I think is low cost. We now provide our employees 32 hours of paid professional development time a year. So if they want to go,
They want.
that's what they want.
Want.
You know, we're finding our millennials definitely want that. So
Yeah.
now they can use that hour to go shadow whatever role, whatever job, whatever they want to do within the company. And that's been something that with the ops tempo and the speed of
Yes.
things
Sure.
doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And then our volunteer program. So through the Benevity platform, we've got some matching for donations, but the really cool thing is we give our employees 16 hours a year paid volunteer time.
That's
And we
great.
encourage them to go use it.
I'm hearing that more and more, especially the younger demographic. They tend to want to make giving back to the community a component of their actual work. So I've always considered that there, vocational engagement in the community versus avocational, but it's blurring now. And
Yeah.
a lot of people want that too.
The volunteerism creates a sense of community
Yes.
within your culture.
Right.
It creates your brand.
It does.
In the community. People are going to talk about that. You're getting a lot of, social media
Yeah.
from the employees out there
Yeah.
making that impact. And they want to just have that sense of purpose. And that's what I say.
Yeah, and the benefit to both of you, again, just from the.
And there are
the
some
branding
tax
and-
incentives for employers typically.
Of course, and the branding, but
Yeah.
the nonprofits then, get that visibility, and they probably get people who really care about their mission, and it's a great way to feed new volunteer talent into their organization.
Absolutely.
So I think with nonprofits, it's a different topic, but it's always a struggle, let's get some new people in here to see what we do. So I love when I hear larger companies providing that access. So.
More ideas I'm taking
Yes.
away, I'm taking on
Yes.
implementing them with us. So I love that we're talking about how do you get people to feel like this is a family or a gang or whatever it is, because you got to give them that time. And I think the food piece is really important. The volunteer activities are important. We do a Read Across America where all our guys bring in books. So they're all new books, and then we donate them to the Buckeye Family Center, which is just in downtown Buckeye. And we've done that a few years, and the guys really like it. It seems to be it worked for them for their schedule, since they're 10 to 12-hour days. They can just bring a book from home, and they don't have to worry about their new books or gently used books. So that works really well. And then we get some social media on that. And we do the tuition reimbursement. So we do that up to $5,000. It's a bit more difficult when you have blue collar work to do tuition reimbursement. They typically didn't go to a four-year college, so they may not have the same payback requirements for loans, but we still will do it with Truck Driving Institute. So they went and got their CDL. They're eligible for it as well. So, and then we also have, to make it even easier for our guys to be able to be involved in the community. With our laundering service, we really try to be thoughtful and mindful about who we're partnering with. So you can do laundering service through Mission or linens, different linen providers, UniFirst. We decided to go with a nonprofit based in Phoenix called Social Spin, and they serve the homeless community in Phoenix, and so they employ homeless people to help them do the laundry and do that type of stuff. But they also then have an area of food and refrigerator, and then where the homeless folks can do their laundry. And so they have a for-profit part of their company where they partner with businesses that helps pay for their nonprofit part. So they're 501c3 on their other side. And so our guys can bring in items that that nonprofit would need, like food, like easy things, like macaroni and cheese type
Yeah.
stuff. So they can bring in food, they can bring in like adult wipes. Because when you're homeless, you're not bathing all the time. So then they bring it in, they leave it in this little laundry basket that gets taken once a week. And so we have a lot of employees that will bring in food and or like sanitary type things for that organization, and they don't have to go anywhere, right? So they might not have the time outside of work to do it. And so then we can take a picture in front of it, and Social Spin puts a little media post out and says, thank you, Pullum, for helping us with these things. And so trying to figure out with in manufacturing and in construction, the hours are so long, right?
Right.
So there's just not a lot of time. When you're done with your 50-hour week, you just want to be home with your family, right? And so how do we interweave everything we do and our moral compass into our company is what we've really been thoughtful about. And so, but I really love some of these other ideas about shadowing and food. Food is really important. It's like in the Bible, right? You break bread, and
Right.
if you can feed people,
Absolutely.
then that's really important, and they know that you care about them. So we do have our owner also at Christmas. Lauren gets his carne asada out, and he makes carne asada for all the guys. And last year I actually ordered the food. And so now I feel bad because I was like, you should have cooked it for all of them. Because it gives them this time to like talk to Lauren, and Lauren's day to day with everybody. But it just makes you feel special when the owner is cooking your food and giving you that serving. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely an active service.
So I would recommend that for all companies that are trying to figure out, like, how do I get closer to my guys, and how do I really feel, understand where they're coming from, and we also have all their families come. So their families come, we got all these babies running around, and you're like, I'm holding babies.
Yeah.
And I love it, but then it helps them to know each other too. So it's like trying to build family at a company, so, which is not easy, so.
Well, I want to draw out and focus on something you talked about is the importance of the leadership actually showing up to this stuff. Because it's
Absolutely.
very easy for any company to just create a program or some type of process, and then leaders will step back and the employees will sense that and they'll feel that. And so I think the first rule of an effective leader is to show up and be engaged in these types of community, events.
Right.
Our leadership came down from Kent. Our COO and CEO were there.
Yeah.
And I was there. And so, yeah, I mean, FaceTime for those engagements, it's incredibly important.
Wonderful. And I love how in your organization, although there may not be a wide array of benefits because of your time constraints, that you as an organization have a community partner, and that gives your workforce a common language and something to cheer on and feel good about. So just, again, a nod to how each of you, based on what type of organization you represent, have created something unique that is effective. That's exciting. We are getting down to our last 8 minutes. So what I'm going to do is kind of wrap up with some specific attack questions for you guys that are a little more designed for kind of what might be most important to you. But let's try to keep the answers at about a minute so that we have time to wrap up and thank our sponsors. So Patrick, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk return to work after COVID. USAA, I'm sure, went almost all remote and is now getting back to remote. And that's what I'm hearing from most of my clients, that the trend is that people want to get back to remote, and they liked the time off, but they're missing the workplace, they're missing the collegiality, the water cooler, the productivity. They're feeling a little disengaged from the Zoom calls, and that tends to be what the science is telling us as well, that productivity rises when we're together and we're happier. So we're a different economy now. Past COVID, a lot has happened since COVID, and during COVID, everybody talked about COVID, but technology was still developing. And so here we are 3 years later, we're a totally different economy with a totally different technology skill sets hitting the market right now. So everyone has adopted remote meetings. It seems like everyone is like a Zoom super user or a Teams super user. Nobody had heard of that stuff really before, and it was unacceptable unless you were demoing software for somebody in Germany to even do a remote meeting. You were expected to be face-to-face. That's different now. That's a very different use of technology, and it's a skill set that is rampant. Everybody has it. We have AI penetrating the economy. It's an everyday tool. I use it. I wrote a resume with it last week. It was so awesome. I taught my mom how to do it. I know workers are using it. I know a grant writer who uses it. These and other new technologies have advanced so much in the last few years. This is demanding professional development. How do I use these tools? How do I leverage these tools? How do I advance in my marketing, my digital marketing skill set, my accounting technology skill set? As these technologies have come forward, our workforce must come forward. What types of professional developments are you at USAA offering your employees, and how has this attracted your talent attraction and talent retention strategies?
So through that pandemic, we went through an exercise of identifying what are some of the top 5 skills that we need to develop within our organization. And okay, after we did research and we found those skills, what exists today to develop? Well, not a lot, because these are skills of the future a lot of times. So we have brought back a couple programs. One of them that we just wrapped up is called eFit, and we take a existing cohort of students, or they have to apply and we go through aptitude testing. But essentially, long story short, after 6 months, they went from member contact doing insurance. They are now developers. So we put them through the program. They successfully have to interview for a job still. But during that 6 months, they're working in the company, working with the people who are teaching them OJT, on the job training, as they're learning those skill sets. So we found phenomenal success with that. Out of the 20 we put through, 19 completed. So those are great statistics. That we integrated that into our outreach and talent acquisition side. We now have a vet fit program. So veterans transitioning out of the military can come in, get hired, go through that same 6-month process where we will teach them. They'll get OJT, and with all said and done, hopefully end up in that permanent job as the. And we also developed something called the Eagle Academy. It's supported through a program called Degree, is the organization we're supporting with, but it is an in-house career development website and program. Everything from your 2 to 3 minute videos on artificial intelligence to several hours on project management and how to get your Six Sigma yellow belt. So we've tried to bring everything together in one spot. So it's not just your skill development, it's career development, career planning, everything in one centralized.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's a lot of thinking. A lot of thinking. There's a lot to cover.
A lot went into that.
I'll bet it did, because you're creating pathways and access, and you're working with vendors to bring in the right tools and then making it all work together. So
Summarizing, we're making sure they have the skills, the capability, and the tools.
yeah, love it. Rachel, question for you. Why the West Valley? How did workforce impact Sika Plastic Packaging to choose to locate in Arizona and specifically Surprise, the West Valley? And what advice would you maybe give other companies considering a reload to the awesome West Valley?
There might be parts of this story I shouldn't tell. We were kicked out of California.
Oh,
And
so was
so
I.
we were kicked, asked to leave, we left, kicked out. I don't know. Anyway, it's open for interpretation. So the company was originally in Fowler, California in 2014, and that's where we started. And the state was not too friendly to us, I guess. We put plastic in our name, and then the fight was on. And so in short, the owners had looked at Arizona. We found a great plot of land over off of Waddell and Litchfield in Surprise, and decided to build here based on all of the concessions, I guess, for lack of a better term, that we were going to get, or the harassment and taxes that we weren't going to get. I mean, it's however you look at it on either side. And so when we opened our doors in August of 2019 here, we had 17 employees on the first payroll that we ran. Last payroll that we ran was well over 100. And so we've had phenomenal growth here. It's
Great.
Amazing. It's been a struggle. We don't retain an employee, and then we have to hire two, and then we don't retain one, and we have to hire two more. And so to achieve that growth, eventual growth that we've achieved now, and we're not quite done, we still have open positions as well, but we selected the West Valley, I guess, if I just summarize my answer to you, for the kindness that was going to be shown to the company over the course of the years that we were going to need it while we were growing.
Wonderful. I'm glad that was your impression, because that's how we feel on the receiving end of meeting new companies that are
Been great so far.
moving here. So thank you again for choosing the West Valley.
Absolutely.
And I hope you get some strategic partners out of this webinar today.
I hope so.
And so Kathy, to finalize the last question, let's talk workforce housing. Okay, that's a big topic in the West Valley. It's getting more expensive here. Could you maybe differentiate for us what the difference is in your company's mind between workforce housing and low-income housing, and what regional partnerships should we have here? What should cities and businesses and universities, what should we all be thinking about?
So Paloma, we really want our employees to live close to us, partially because it's economically viable. When they stay in the West Valley, they're not wasting gas. But we found that many of our employees were renting because they didn't have access to housing. So we thought that's not acceptable. And some of them have not bought houses because their parents hadn't bought houses. There's a lot of like mobile homes and trailers that are in the West Valley as well. So that's been a kind of a staple of the West Valley. And so we thought, we need to figure out housing for our employees because it builds generational wealth. They're already making good money. but we want to figure out how to do more. And so we partnered with UMB Bank to do some financial literacy around how do you buy a house. And then we also give a $5,000 incentive which is basically a gift that we use when they go through the housing process so that they can use that money to pay their down payment on a home. So we give it to I think they call it the broker that holds all the money for their down on the house.
Right.
We would love to see some more state, city, or federal partnerships on this, where you have a federal tax incentive, much like we do with tuition reimbursement, where they're not taxed if it goes into their paycheck. So that would be great. Some federal legislation around it. The state of Illinois has state legislation on it where they give companies tax incentives, kind of like what you guys were given to come to the West Valley, some tax incentives. So we'd love to see some tax incentives given by either the state or local level. That would be awesome, because then it just encourages more employees or employers to do it, and employees have this benefit. They've done it in Baltimore and around the country, where they've partnered with cities to do that. And so it doesn't have to be at the state level, it can be at the city level, and they can pull federal dollars to fund that program. So we're excited to have the discussion, but UMB Bank has been our #1 partner on it, because the West Valley has been shown to have a lack of housing at a more substantial rate than obviously Phoenix does. And so they've come in, they've partnered, and they have a grant program that they also have. So our employees are coming together with this banking institution and us, and we're able to leverage even more dollars to get our employees their down payment on houses. So, and if the city would come in, we would love that too, and we would figure it out. So, but those are kind of things that we're doing.
And those are things I think the cities are working on, the regional thought leaders are working on. So thank you for that. I think that's a great segue into one of our next upcoming panels on workforce housing. The kickoff for workforce housing conversation will be the November webinar. It's going to be called Workforce Housing and then Transportation as well. Yeah. So, okay, we're at time. I'm going to give you each 10-second. What's the one thing our audience should learn from today? Rachel?
That Sika Plastic Packaging is hiring, and we'd love to have you.
Wonderful.
USAjobs.com.
Okay.
Castle Ready Mix is ready to partner with you if you're ready to partner.
Love it. All right. So thank you, panelists, today for all this wonderful information. I know our audience pulled a lot of great ideas from it. We appreciate what each of you are doing for the West Valley, in the West Valley. It means a lot to all of us. Like I said, a rising tide lifts all boats. You're adding a lot of great value here. And for our audience, thank you so much for joining us in the first of 4 webinars in the West Valley Workforce Success Series. Today was Find Them, Keep Them, Recruiting and Retention Tips. Coming up on July 19th, A Day in the Life, Workforce Experiential Learning. September 20th, the Foundation, K-12 Education for Labor Pipelines. And November 15th, Live, Work, and Stay, Workforce Housing and Transportation. So thank you to our sponsors again, City of Surprise and the Greater Maricopa Foreign Trade Zone, also known as GMFTZ. Happy hiring, everyone.